At this point now, we've created a GUI and we've added some buttons and we've had actions on these buttons. You can see we are getting some text and we're displaying it out as a pop-up. Now, we saw an issue last time where if I run this code and I get an answer to this and I haven't put anything inside of this first name box, when I hit submit, I see I pressed a button, nothing. We want to make sure the users at least do input. We can do validation in short. And so in a GUI with a single button input, the easiest way to do validation is let them press the button and then go check each one of the fields individually for the answer. So the start of what we're doing is very much the same. We get the input field, then we want to check if this input field has something inside of it. The basic rule of is there something there is if we can say that name dot trim. This is an important little trick inside of here. The trim clears off any white space before and after any text inside of there. So if I put space, 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 Tony, space, space, tab, it will clear off the tab and the spaces after Tony and then the spaces before Tony. So the trim is important to make sure I don't, accidentally just put white space inside of there and leave that. And then we can check the length of that. So if that length is equal to 0, then I don't have the appropriate thing showing here. If it's not equal to 0, then we're fine to go, and then we can go through and say press the button. If it's not equal to 0, equal to 0. We have to check it. Is it equal to 0? Got to remember that. So if it is equal to 0, I can do something as simple as do a pop-up that says you must provide a name inside of there. All right, so I can go through, I can run this code here, and now you can see when I run the code, if I hit submit, my get text was space 0, it was length of 0, and so it says you must provide a name. But it also said I need to press a button, so that's where my logic's falling a little bit, else it's going to do this other work. I have to have something inside here. Or I could do a return right here or something like that. Now, I don't want to do that because I need to deal with some other things as well. So that's I just want to show you this is one way to have it happen, but let me take this out here because I have more than one field that's going on inside of here. So I need to deal with all the fields, not just the name that's going on inside of the first name. I need a first name and a last name inside of here. So if that's the case, I need a first name and a last name. I have to be able to have a bit more smarter option. So I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to paste all this. So I have the name, and then I can have inside of here last name. Okay? I don't want first name text here. I want last name text. Name text. Okay? And so and I need to check here last name. So if the last name's there, you must provide a last name. And then I can change this one up here to be first name. So that way I can be very clear. I want to be as clear as I can in my code. Now this says when I go off and run my solution, and I need to go through and quit this guy, I'll go run my solution again. I need to provide both a first name and a last name. So if I don't have a first name, I must provide a first name. And I must provide a last name. And I also pressed a button. Okay, we'll get back to that last part in a second. So now if I provide a first name, but don't provide a last name, it tells me I need to provide a last name. But I pressed the button Tony. If I provide a last name, I press the button Tony. If I don't provide a first name, I must provide a first name. If I provide a first name of space, 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 it says you must provide a first name. If I do space, 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 T, that's okay. I have that going on inside of there. That's an acceptable item. Now I can always use trim later on when I grab it and automatically clear out that white space. There's all sorts of logic I can apply over the top of it. But this is the start of what validation looks like. It gets more complicated. We can go much further with this. But let's just take a look at a few of the options inside of here. The biggest thing is if the next answer is I have something down here, I only want to do this if I both succeeded for a first name and I succeeded for a last name. If either one of them isn't present, I don't have the appropriate data, I don't want to move forward. So I have to add in additional information. This is not GUI coding, this is just straight logic. You can solve this problem in any number of hundreds of ways. Let me show you a simple answer to this. So what I can do is I can put in here a Boolean value. All data received. And I start that as being false. So when I first enter this method, I assume the user hasn't given me all the data I want to. If that's indeed the case, then I will not show the you pressed a button. Okay, so if all data received, if I indeed did get all the data, then I will, at that point, do whatever I want to at the end. So what I need to do then, as I receive each one of the fields, and I confirm it's acceptable, then I want to go through and say all data is received, right? It sounds like a good plan. Now, how does the logic work? If we think through this. So what we want to say is, if we assume we don't have any of the data, we have to confirm we do have the data. So if we can say, if we have the dialog here, then we can go through and say all data received. So we could do else all data received is equal to true. Now the problem here is, what do I do down here? Do I say all data received is equal to false if it's false here? So this is where logic comes in, and you can play with logic. So absolutely we could. We could say, if that's true, all data received is equal to false. So if it ends up false, it's there. And really, honestly, we should probably also put this up here. The thing I don't like about this logic is all of a sudden it becomes order dependent. So let me show you a simpler way to construct this logic. All right, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to undo a bunch of what I just did right there. So if you're following along, I apologize if you type this and have to untype all that. Oops, sorry, one too many. One too many there. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to say all data received is true. This might seem counterintuitive, but often programming language is indeed counterintuitive. Oh, I have an extra. Yeah, there you go. Much better. All right, so I had extra semicolon, curly bracket down there, which then threw everything off. That's why I just corrected. So if I say all data is true, anytime I get a false response, then I can say all data received is equal to false. And I can do this down here as well. So what I'm doing is I'm actually assuming it's fine, but I'm still checking every one of the fields. And if any one of the fields doesn't check out, then all of them is no longer valid. So I just wanted to go through that little bit of thinking pattern, and let's walk through it again one time. So I started off with the idea of, hey, I only want to do something if everything's valid, if I've received all the data I need to. So I'm creating a variable up top. Have I received all the data? I could assume it's false to start with, in which case I have to prove all of them are true for any of them to be true. I have to do this and this and this and this. That's fine. I can do it that way, and I could have done the logic, but then I have a lot of ordering and stuff to check out. So what if I did last before first, or add in a new one, or stuff like that? So the alternative, what I'm doing here, is I'm saying all my data is received, and let's assume it's true. And then we'll go check every one of the fields anyway, like we would anyway. And anytime I check a field, so I'm checking the first name, if the first name is failing and I'm showing an error, just say, hey, I didn't receive all the data. And so this is, if any of these fails, it's false, and it can never be true again. So it's OR logic inside of there. If any of these are, well, it's AND logic. It's the same AND logic, but if any of them fails, it's going to be false. So now, if I go and run my code, I have this guy pop up. If I hit submit, you must provide a first name, you must provide a last name, and then it does not tell me what the hello box. So now if I provide a first name, you must provide a last name. It does not tell me the whole rest of the box. If I provide a last name, it tells me I must provide a first name. It does not provide me the whole rest of the box. Until I put both the first name and a last name in, it won't say I pressed a button. All right, so this is the basics of validation. I do want to show you a little bit more, but I want to leave it here. I want you to play with this for now, get something like this, a couple fields working in your box, because that'll help you get a fundamental feel for making this stuff work. Now we're moving past GUI into just straight logic, and so you need to play with it, you need to get a feel for it, and then we'll do one more wrinkle on this in the last of the videos.